Let's discuss formative assessments. We'll talk about the definition of formative assessments and their function in a course. We'll also discuss different types of formative assessments, examples, and techniques. Finally, we'll talk about how to use formative assessments to make adjustments in your course. First, let's start with a brief definition of formative assessments. Formative assessments are used throughout a course to help us measure a learner's progress towards the course learning outcomes. You can think about them as the stepping stones of a learning journey. Learners are given low or no stakes tasks to complete that reflect their current knowledge, understanding, and skill levels. Next, let's talk about their function. As educators, we use formative assessments to create a dialogue with our learners. They help us to gauge the progress our learners are making towards our learning outcomes. We can make informed decisions about how we are delivering our materials and make adjustments where needed. We can also intervene with individual learners early and often in their learning development. For those reasons, it's important to use formative assessments during all phases of a course, from the first day to the last day. There are dozens of formative assessments that should happen during a course. Here are a few types we'd like to spotlight: discussions, drafts, observations, and check-ins. First, let's talk about discussions. Discussions prompt students to engage in informal conversations about a course topic. For students, discussions give them opportunities to voice their knowledge, test what they know, and practice articulating knowledge. For us, discussion allows us to immediately gauge student learning, reinforce points, clarify misunderstanding, and provide feedback. Discussions can and should take many forms in your course. For synchronous sessions, you should use these as a time for questions, debate, and conversation. You can use any video conferencing platform such as Zoom, Google Hangout, or MS Teams. Some learning management systems also have video conferencing available. Asynchronous sessions can use discussion boards or forums. You can encourage students to post video responses using Screencast-O-Matic or audio responses using Otter AI. Lastly, you can use chat platforms for discussion. Your learning management system may have a chat feature. You may also use the chat feature in MS Teams if you're using it already for video conferencing, or use another app like GroupMe. Next, let's talk about drafts. Drafts are the first attempts to speak to a prompt. For students, drafts provide structure and accountability for their assignments and open up an opportunity for feedback and support. For us, drafts give us insight into our students' progress towards assignment outcomes and allow us to intervene in crucial stages throughout the learning process. Drafting can take many forms, such as project/research proposals, research logs, brainstorming, outlines, and rough works. You should build in feedback loops that include feedback reflections and student video conferences. You can also build in collaboration, such as using Google Docs, MS Word Online, or MS OneNote as a shared research log. Third, let's talk about observations. As formative assessments, observations encourage our students to engage in reflection, self-analysis, and metacognition. For us, they help us to see how students are approaching a given concept or skill, how they view themselves as learners, and how they position themselves in the course. Observations can be standalone assignments, or you can use observations as check-ins during projects and as elements of a portfolio. For instance, at the end of a week, unit, lesson, or assignment, you can collect observations in the form of reflection essays, journals, blogs, or muddiest and/or aha moments. If part of a larger project or portfolio, you can ask them to write reflection essays or learning narratives. Finally, you can use check-ins as formative assessments. Check-ins are informal tests used to determine knowledge/skill acquisition and retention. For students, they help them to practice and test their knowledge in a low or no stakes environment. For us, they can help us assess student knowledge and skill and intervene prior to a summative assessment. The most straightforward technique is to give a short quiz and/or example test questions as practice. Other methods include a 3-time summary, where you ask students to summarize in 3 different ways, such as different audiences or different lengths. Compare and contrast response that asks them to evaluate different topics/issues for similarities/dissimilarities. And a scavenger hunt, where students are prompted to find, post, and explain an artifact related to the topic/issue being discussed. Lastly, let's talk about how you can use formative assessments to make adjustments to your course. Formative assessments provide us with important information on the way our students are learning. Some of that information will tell us that students are progressing towards learning outcomes as expected. That's important feedback for us because it lets us know that our course is working as we designed it to. Some of that feedback, however, may tell us that our students are struggling and that we may need to make adjustments. There are some adjustments you can make to your course right now to respond to what you're seeing in students' formative assessments, and some that you can make the next time you teach the course. If you need to make adjustments right now, you can increase embedded student support, address areas of concern in discussion/announcements, create an open discussion forum for questions, create additional formative assessments, tweak next week's lesson plan, and use weekly overviews to reinforce information. If your formative assessments suggest a larger issue in the course, then moving forward, you can implement the constructive feedback you received, design more opportunities to communicate concerns, provide links to resources for areas of concern, revise course maps/lesson plans, revise lesson plans for clarity, use/increase instructional scaffolding, and consider alternative approaches. Designing your course with formative assessments helps you deliver a learning-centered course. As we have discussed, formative assessments give learners an opportunity to discuss, test, reflect, and practice their learning in a low or no-stakes environment, while also giving us the opportunity to start a dialogue with our learners about learning and their process. We gain valuable insight into our learners and our course, which can allow us to make the adjustments to our teaching now and in the future.